Off the heels of the 4th of July, it's time to go special event racing at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as we prepare here today for a Dark Horse Racing Series event, the Drinan Garage Doors 500 at the Brickyard. Seth Cole alongside of Matthew Rodriguez. And Matt, we've got ourselves a little bit of a special event here today. Drivers going to take to the open wheel circuit and try and see if they can get that cash prize at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Now, the name of the game is obviously getting up front and winning the race, but there also is an added caveat to it where you have to have 0x to claim that $100 prize. So if you just kind of bulldoze through the field, you're not going to be $100 richer. You're just going to have a lot more angry people with you.
So not only do you have to be smart, not only do you have to be aggressive, but you've got to be clean. And that's going to be interesting to see with the drivers we got in the field here today, how they're going to be able to do that, especially those that are starting towards the back of the pack. Nick DeGroot going to line up on the pole position for today's event alongside of Max Caldwell, Charles Teed, and Mike Tellier. They're going to make up row 2. Charles Johnson going to complete the top 5 as we look through the rest of the lineup here. And obviously, Matt, a lot of these drivers we're very used to seeing on Wednesday nights in the Dark Horse Racing Series, the IndyCar series that they run, but there's some names in here that we're not familiar with, and it always kind of intrigues me with that because a lot of drivers that we don't know their racing background, it's kind of like a melting pot. It's kind of wondering, will they play nice with the guys we're familiar with their racing styles?
That's the key thing. I mean, you have to look through this field and say, hey, is there anyone that I actively know? Or, I mean, people that could be holding hidden talents. You don't know if Zach Kerr is actually a Jensen Button. Or, hey, someone's just racing under a fake name. Who knows? But really, I mean, you've got our normal stars who are up front. You've obviously got the Groot. You've got Teed, Tellier when he's kind of not having a bad week. Those guys are usually guys you'd be worried about. But looking throughout the field, there's a lot of new names, a lot of new drivers here.
We showed you the 10 drivers that took time. There's another driver that just came onto the racetrack. That's Kyle Lura in the 43. So 11 drivers going to be taking the green flag here. Now, originally this was going to be 200 laps, but due to the fact we have a smaller car count, admin discretion decided to shorten this down to 75 laps. So they will race to the completion of lap 75. Still a pretty lengthy race, though, when you consider the fuel cell that these Indy cars have. So, if things remain clean, we could end up seeing that one, maybe two green flag pit stops be the deciding factor into who's taking the checkered flag today.
Easily. Just got to think here. Right now, this is going to be a strategy race up until about 15 laps to go, because at 15 laps to go, I'm pretty sure your bet is made, and what you got is what you got.
Oh, Nick DeGroot, back in Season 3 of the Dark Horse Racing Series, won the season finale, the Indianapolis 500. We'll see if just a few months after, if he can pick up his second checkered flag here at this historic racetrack. He'll lead us to the green, and we're underway in the Drinan Garage Doors 500.
I think it's actually quite underrated how good the Groot is in the IR-18 car. I mean, obviously with the DW12, really there's not very many in-car adjustments you can use to make your life easier, but with the IR-18, there's a lot of in-car adjustments, anti-roll bar adjustments, weight jacket adjustments you can use to make the car feel a lot better and drive the way you want, especially if you're in traffic or leading the race.
Big run down the back straightaway for Charles Teed. He'll jump to the outside of Nick DeGroot. Looks to clear him by the time they exit off of turn 3, and he will do so. So Charles Teed might be the one to lead the first lap of this race, and that's rather encouraging. Oh, as we got a car in the wall back there, Jimmy Drinan has hit the wall out of 4. He's shot down to the inside wall. Big hit for the 99. Caution's going to fly.
And it looks like that car is broke, and ended up having to tow back the pit road.
Drivers do have one faster pair at their disposal here today. Undoubtedly, Jimmy Drinan is going to have to use that as early as not even the completion of lap number 1. Let's go back to turn 4 and see what happened. I don't think there was any contact between him and another. I think he just came a little too wide off the final corner.
I've kind of made that same mistake where I think it's just overconfidence. And not overconfidence in a bad way of, hey, I mean, you see every one of these guys in front of you holding down the throttle full out and kind of on the same lane as you are, but hey, he didn't have the draft up in front of him, didn't have a car to tuck in behind. So obviously he just kind of marined into the wall. And these Indy cars are so much of a bravery test that when you get almost to the exit of 4, I mean, that's pretty much your make or break decision of, am I going to lift and see if I'm going to hit the wall, or am I afraid I'm going to hit the wall, or am I going to just full throttle it in and hope she sticks? And unfortunately, it just didn't stick.
Well, fortunately, there is a safer barrier down the area that Drinan hit, but the thing that surprises me, I don't know if it's just the way that the car is shaped, but under normal circumstances, you would expect that that car is going to shoot right back up onto the racetrack, but it's almost as if that safer barrier really stifled the momentum and it just kind of crawled back up towards the racing line.
Yeah, I think maybe the lost tire on the left front had a little bit to do with that, but
that could.
I think at that point you're just kind of a victim and just riding around.
Well, Jimmy Drinan, he will be using that faster pair momentarily. However, due to the fact that he had to tow to get back to pit road, he does have to sit on pit lane for the amount of time it would take for that tow to complete. He right now is being scored 2 laps down to the race leaders. I don't know if being a special event, if they'll let him get those laps back or not, but nobody came to pit road here under this first caution of the day. Teed, the race leader. DeGroot drops back to 2nd. Max Caldwell 3rd. Mike Tellier stays where he started in 4th. And Jeff Hysong up 1 spot to the 5th position. Obviously, we didn't really get a number of laps to be able to get an idea of how these cars handle, but going back to the point I was going to make just before the 99 had his issues, that outside line looks like if you're able to get enough of a run down the back straightaway, it actually does work up there in 3 and 4, and obviously I would assume the same could be said from the front straightaway over to 1 and 2. That's got to be something these drivers are taking notice of, because in the number of the Indianapolis 500s we've covered for Dark Horse, it almost seems like you want to take that inside line because the outside line just wasn't able to get the momentum. So what's changed here?
Maybe just time of day, maybe how hot the track is. It could be kind of a varying number of things, but sometimes it's really just about how you enter these corners, and that really just dictates so heavily your exit off.
Two drivers came down pit lane, Nick DeGroot and Jeff Hysong. So DeGroot gives up second. Hysong will give up fifth to come down pit lane for what looks like it may have just been topping off the fuel tank there with the amount of time they had on pit road. And we should be getting the 1 to green signal this next time by. Jimmy Drinan still sits on pit road in the 99 machine. So we talked about the fuel window for these guys. It's going to be roughly in the 28 to 32 lap range. And with the 75 laps they're going to be running, I mean, that puts them at least one pit stop, maybe two, and then just a handful of laps left towards the checkered flag. With this early caution, I'm almost wondering if that's what DeGroot and Hysong are thinking of right now, that coming down, topping off the fuel tank means that they would absolutely be able to make it the rest of the way on just those two pit stops.
Could be the case. Also, there's a few kind of fuel-saving strategies you can use while just riding around. Now, obviously, the Indy cars don't have the ability to be kind of almost like the NASCAR stock cars, to be shut off and kind of coasted. However, they do have different engine modes that they can be put in, so I believe it's engine mode 8 is the max. So a lot of these guys are probably just riding around at 8 here at the moment. And then obviously you can kind of clutch and coast around the track. That's going to help you save maybe a lap or two of fuel if you really keep at it, but if you're kind of, I think, 5 or 10 short, I don't know how much it'll help.
Now, one thing I'm going to just ask real quickly, and you would know this a lot more than I would since you're very familiar with the iRacing sim. I'm more familiar with the NR 2003 side. When you end up having an event that is scheduled for a certain number of laps and then it gets shortened, it does kind of throw a little bit of a monkey wrench into fuel strategy when you decide to come to pit road, because you're usually looking at the projected laps, and it's projecting it for, in this case, 200 laps rather than the 75. So you have to do a lot of calculations in your head. Is it the same here on the iRacing side for these guys?
On the bright side, with the kind of difference from the NR sim to the iRacing sim is instead of having a laps to go counter, almost like your, I think your F5 would have, it really just shows you your estimated laps that you have currently with your fuel tank, and it constantly adjusts to about, I think, about 0.1 of a degree. Now, that fuel kind of estimate isn't extremely accurate until it hits about 10 or 5 laps or 5 gallons within its kind of range. That's when it really becomes accurate and it gets kind of up-to-date information. So you may notice, hey, maybe for the first 25, 30 laps, it's kind of a consistent, I'd say, fuel burn. Then maybe within that 5-gallon range, it's, all right, we start seeing it drop a lot heavier now just because it's updating more constantly.
Lights are out top the pace car. We're going to be going back green flag racing. Again, if you're not familiar with IndyCar restarts, when the pace car hits pit lane, the race leader can go at any point that they choose. So Charles Teed will be the control car. Max Caldwell lines up in second. Mike Tellier in third. Tyler Hurt now up to fourth. And Alistair Kirk is going to complete the top 5 here. Furkan Durakoglu is going to be in sixth. Kyle Lura in 7th, Nick DeGroot and Jeff Hysong, who were just on pit lane a couple of laps ago, to top off the fuel tank. They restart 8th and 9th, and Charles Johnson actually came to pit road under the last lap of pacing to top off his fuel tank. He will restart in the 10th position. Those 10 drivers will come down here to the green flag for this restart, as Jimmy Drinan, who brought out our first and only caution up to this point, still sits on pit road. Charles Teed waiting for his moment. Up through the gears he goes. We're back underway here in the Drinan Garage Doors 500.
Man, Hysong did not get going on that restart. There's about 3 cars that ended up flying by him.
Looks like Kyle Lura might have gotten held up by him as well. The 18 and the 43 with some issues here at the initial start. Everybody able to keep it straight, keep it going. We stay under the green, but we've got a 3-car breakaway at the front of the field. Teed and Caldwell, and then maybe a 6-7 car lengths back to Mike Tellier in third.
You got to look at this here where I'm looking at that top 3 kind of group here. And I'm really saying, hey, these are 3 cars that, as long as they stay together and this thing goes green for a considerable amount of time, there's some, looks like Maxwell had at least a little bit of a wiggle out of 3.
Keeps it together, though, and that allows Charles Teed to make the move for the top position. Mike Tellier has been able to reel in the top 2 with them racing side by side, so 3 cars separated by about maybe 5 car lengths. Then it's about 7 back to Alistair Kirk. who then has a rear deck lid full of Tyler Hurt in the 15 machine. Again, as mentioned, the race is shortened to 75 laps. That is the completion of 75. When they take lap 75, that will be when the white flag is displayed. So bear that in mind. When lap 75 comes on your telemetry there, that does not mean the race is over. There's still another 2 miles to go.
And see, that would kind of psych me out so much where, I mean, here's the thing. If I'm doing my calculations, I have to be so careful to make sure I almost budget it all the way to lap 76 instead of 75 where, hey, great, I'm good for when I cross the line in 75, but oh, I'm out of gas on 76.
Riding on board here with Nick DeGroot. We saw him have to restart back in the 8th position. He goes to work on Tyler Hurt in the 15. We'll move back up into the top 5, completing that pass out of turn 2. One thing that I noticed with Nick DeGroot, not only did he come down pit road under that last caution to top off the fuel tank, but he spent a good portion of the remaining pacing laps just kind of coasting about 5-6 car lengths behind the rest of the field, so I think he was saving fuel even then. So long-term strategy there for the 89 is up at the front. Now it's a 4-car battle, and it's about to get bigger. I think we're going to have about 8-9 cars under a blanket in the next lap and a half.
Yeah, I was going to mention Alistair Kirk really was kind of making that bottom side work, but he kind of ran into the same issue that we've seen plague a lot of drivers in the previous Indy 500, which is just they got those 2 left side tires underneath that white line, and that's just enough to kind of upset the car where it wants to slide out from under him, and it kind of gave Tellier just a little bit of leeway here, but see, DeGroot's kind of making his way up to Kirk right now.
Like Tellier took a look there to the inside of Charles Teed for second going into 3, thought better of it. DeGroot, though, takes the high line around Alistair Kirk. He's going to move to 4th. He's going to move to 3rd. That 89 is flying. He just got 2 cars in the matter of 2 corners around the longer way of the racetrack. Now goes for 2nd.
So I really have to wonder, I'm kind of wondering if DeGroot's maybe leveraging the ability of, hey, I'm not going to lift, you could possibly get instant points here, as his reasoning for kind of being able to cut through the field so easily where, I mean, listen, any incident it could be as simple as a 1X or a 4X. A 1X is just maybe touching off track, or maybe just barely scraping the wall, where a 4X is a car contact. But again, any one of those incidents will take you out of the running for a $100 prize. I'm wondering if a lot of these guys are being conservative, so when DeGroot's, doing his massive kind of jut through the field, everyone's getting out of his way.
Hey, if you're out there in clean air, the car's going to turn better than it would back in aero traffic, and if you're out in front, you got a better chance of avoiding an incident. Ooh. So I like the strategy there on the 89.
And T, I don't know what happened out of turn 4, but man, there's almost a huge stack up of Tellier and Kirk.
You saw him make that abrasive maneuver to the inside to avoid any possible incident there from 3rd back to 5th. Now he's going to slot back in behind Mike Tellier. Tyler Hurt behind him in the 15. And then the 21 of Furkan Durkagoglu in that machine, as well as Charles Johnson. Charles Johnson.
Hurt.
Big wreck. Tyler
Hurt
and I'm sorry, actually, that's Durkagoglu. That was also involved. No yellow flag as both cars badly mangled over in the exit of turn 3, entrance of turn 4. I'm not sure if they'll be able to, they'll have to crawl back to pit. Oh, no! Did the 21 just come back up? No. He did. He just killed somebody.
Oh,
At the 66? No, who was that? 43. Kyle Lura.
I don't know whose fault that was more on, the one who didn't have any wheels or the one that didn't use the brakes.
Wow. I just caught the tail end of that. I thought everything was going to be fine. Then all of a sudden I saw the 43 come flying in, and yeah, you knew the rest. My goodness.
He hit him going 198.
The caution is out.
He never lifted.
Let's go back and see what happened here. Started with the 15 and the 21 over in turn 4. Gotta wait for Matt to compose himself here, my lord.
I mean, Furkan was doing a great job. He was trying to get out of the way of the one of the Dunkin' Donuts cars out there, and he just reversed back onto the track.
Yeah. There he is into the outside wall, and then this is what we didn't get to see the full brunt of. Backs the thing back up into the racing line, and here comes Kyle Lura, nowhere to go. Wow, yeah, I'm with you. I'm not really sure who to put that on. I mean, obviously there was oncoming traffic. I don't know why you would pull back up onto the racetrack, but if there's a wreck that's up there, I'm not necessarily certain why you wouldn't lift. Granted, the caution wasn't out yet, so you want to pick up all the spots you can, but
I am looking
still.
at the left rear of that 21, and everything is gone. There is no part of that car that is left back there.
On board with the 43 of Kyle Lura. And looked like even his car wasn't handling all that well down the straightaway. He ran really low there. I'm not sure he knew where any of the cars were. Found out awfully quickly. There is the 21, and what a shot for the 43 machine. And, well, I think we can add a couple more drivers to the list of those that are going to have to take on that faster pair here. And it looks like we're going to have 12 cars in this race now. Lonnie Downs in the 66. He was in here during practice laying down some pretty good lap times, but he did not take the green. He has since returned back to the server, but we're waiting for him to officially get on track for his first lap of this event. Let's take another camera angle here of exactly what led to the contact. I can't tell if maybe the 21 gets into the 15's right rear quarter panel, hooks him up into the wall, or if the 15 just never was able to turn off that corner.
Yeah, see, I never actually really got a chance to take a look at that original incident, but I'm kind of
Probably
seeing
your eyes
that.
were watering from laughing.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of seeing that here where, I mean, if you look at the 15, how he entered at least, it looks like turn 2, got his left side tires down on that right kind of a rumble strip there.
Oh,
now here's the thing. In the cup cars, you really can aggressively attack underneath the white line. You can aggressively kind of put your car all the way down to the grass, and that's how you really make it go fast. But at least in these Indy cars, they're so aero sensitive. They're so sensitive to changes in the track kind of conditions. For the moment that you have that lack of grip on the left side, kind of lost the front end a little bit, ended up coming back up the track, and then kind of just met in the middle with the 21. And when they collected on both the right front and the left front of their respective cars, I mean, tires came off and lost control.
Well, yeah, I mean, those rumble strips down there, they're not really there for grip. They're more there as a guideline to show you where the pavement ends and that grass in the infield begins. If you get your left sides down there, there's nothing that those tires are going to grab.
Yeah. It's just kind of a thing of your brain tells you, because in almost every other car that you race here at Indy, you can go down there, you can really aggressively attack that. But just in these Indy cars, how they're so set up for these speedways, they are just not designed to go down there.
Saw Maxwell Caldwell diving onto pit lane from the second position, so he'll come down to the attention of his crew, maybe top off the fuel tank, maybe put some Firestones on that machine. We do have one driver officially out of the race right now, and that is Tyler Hurt after that big impact into the outside wall in turn 3. Also looks like the 14 of Alistair Kirk may have come down pit lane and taken his machine to the garage area. Not sure what the reason is behind that. He was having a really decent run, was up there in the top 5 for a good portion of that last green flag stint.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm still kind of bewildered of that last one.
Still playing that replay over in your head, aren't you?
I'm wrapping my head around. Now, one important part is I have not been able to track the incidents for the respective drivers here, so I'm not sure who has incidents at the moment and who doesn't. Unfortunately, it looks like my tracker may have unfortunately broke here, so I'm not able to see, and currently iRacing will not let you see the incidents until the checkered flag in every car is past the start-finish line, so I won't know who's still eligible for this. I mean, obviously, we have the kind of general idea of who is eligible and who is not eligible. Obviously, the two that we just kind of saw crash into each other, they are no longer eligible because they have more than one incident. I'm going to be shocked if it's less than 5, but they have more than one incident, so they're out. But I did see that stack up between Teed and Tellier and then also Kirk. So I'm really wondering, maybe did Teed and Tellier have any contact?
That's a good question. Not really certain.
Even if it doesn't show damage, you can still do almost wheel-to-wheel or kind of bumper-to-bumper contact, and it won't exactly damage the car.
It's going to be something interesting to follow up here. Yeah, right now, you can maybe count 6, maybe 7 drivers right now that could possibly still be in the running for that bonus as the green flag is back in the air. But if you're right in terms of the possible contact between Teed and Tellier, we may be down to about 4 or 5 drivers that are still in the running for it. One that we're pretty certain is your race leader, Nick DeGroot, as Charles Teed and Mike Tellier are going to lead the field out of turn 2 and down the back straightaway. Kyle Lura in the 43 has returned back to the track, as has Furkan Durakoglu. Both of them had to use their faster pairs. Both are scored 2 laps down right now, so they're going to have to rely on some cautions to get some free passes, lucky dogs to get back onto the lead lap. But right now, 8 drivers still currently running, 6 of them on the lead lap.
I'm kind of just seeing a few guys kind of bide their time here. I'm seeing different strategies. I mean, if you look at, it looks like Tellier and maybe Haisong, they both kind of are under the impression that they're just kind of riding around here at the moment, maybe not battling that much, but I'm seeing Charles Johnson. He is slowly working his way up the field.
Up to the 3rd spot is Johnson behind Nick DeGroot. Also noticed that, I don't know if it was the timing of that restart, maybe having to start behind some of those slower machines there or what, but Maxwell Caldwell, who had come down pit lane under that last yellow flag, he lost the lead group. It doesn't look like he's going to be able to catch back up here to these top 5.
Looks like Furkan's actually wrecked on the back straightaway.
I saw some smoke there, and that is indeed who it is. The 21 has gone around as well out of turn 4, and he's got no rear wing. That's what his problem is.
Well, it's got no rear wing, and the whole car is, I mean, if you look at it straight down, the entire car is just bent.
And now he's trying to get that car refired. I think he's got to get it into a higher gear because it's just wheel spinning right now on the inside of turn 4.
And just ended up towing back on the pit road, but a guy that I'm seeing leave right now is Kyle Herrera on the 43. Looks like he just got back on track.
Did indeed. Right now running in the 7th position, albeit 2 laps down. With the 21 of Furkan running into that issue, though, if we do have any cautions between now and the checkered flag at the completion of 75, Kyle Lura would be the lucky dog driver. So if we get 2 cautions, he would actually be back on the lead lap, albeit he would have to keep his nose clean because he's the only driver that's still out there that has already used his faster pair. The top 6 still yet to use their faster pair in this one. And, a lot of notes that we could glean off of previous Dark Horse Racing Series 8500s we've done. One thing I remember from the last 8500 was a number of drivers who had not used their faster pair in that race made their final pit stop and took their faster pair on then. Is that something we would see here with these guys in the special event?
Well, you got to remember, if you're having to use a faster pair, you're already out of that running for $100. So, I mean, really, you kind of got to look back in the field where if you've already used that faster pair, had the repair damage on your car, then you're probably out of that $100 running. So you're really just going for a race win at this point. While some of these guys who haven't used their faster pair, whether it be DeGroot, T, Johnson, Haisong, Caldwell, and Tellier, I mean, they're probably still in the running for this. So they're acting at least a little bit more conservatively.
Caldwell was able to latch on to the draft of Mike Tellier. He has gotten back up into this lead group. Tellier has now dropped back to the 6th position, the caboose on this train through 3 and 4. Obviously, folks, Nick DeGroot, Charles Teed, Charles Johnson, Jeff Heisler, Mike Tellier, these are guys that you're going to be able to see racing once again on Wednesday night when the Dark Horse Racing Series Season 4 heads into its 4th race of the season at Chicagoland Speedway. So be sure to tune into that one, as it's been very interesting, the races we've had so far in the first trios of the season. A lot of fuel strategy races, pit strategy races. It's been a lot of fun to be able to see who's going to be able to take the checkered flag in those, and expecting no less when we get to the mile and a half this Wednesday night.
Yeah, I'm looking back here and actually see that Charles Johnson's making that bold move up to the inside. Now, I really wonder, is anyone really wanting to lead this race right now? Because you're getting terrible fuel mileage by leading.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm wondering, actually, if there might have been a little bit of communication there. Nick DeGroot had led a good portion of the last run, a good portion of this run, and might have been saying, hey, I don't want to lead anymore. Somebody go by me. Charles Johnson said, hey, I will.
I mean, someone's got to lead.
Johnson now going to lead us into the first couple of corners here on the 22nd lap, so we're almost a third of the way through this race. Most everybody came down pit road. Actually, everybody did come down pit road under that last caution. Max Caldwell came down the lap after the other 5 drivers did. So most of these drivers should pretty much be good to make it at least to around lap 47, maybe stretch it as far as lap 50. And that would put them in the fuel window to make it the rest of the way on one more pit stop.
I just took a look at the onboard of Charles Johnson. I just took a look at his full outfit. That is a lumberjack frogs.
Got those DeWalt bearskin lumberjack gloves.
The roof
The roof,
jeans.
yes, that's exactly what they
Oh,
are.
there's someone on the grass back there.
That's the 43, Kyle Lura. They had actually reeled him in. He's going down onto the access road to stay out of the way of the race leaders. So, common courtesy there by a slower car. A little bit of a heart-stopping moment there, though, because if you carry too much speed down on those inside access roads, then I think what I was just about to say actually just happened to him. I think he may have actually drifted up the track.
Yeah, actually, it looks like he kind of entered that access road about 140 and lost the rear end when he touched the grass and just kind of darted right into the wall.
Yeah, those access roads are flat. There's no banking. And then when you go past those, you hit grass, which has absolutely no grip whatsoever as well. And, I mean, to be fair, even the regular corners here at Indianapolis don't have an awful lot of banking to lean on. That's why we end up seeing that contact between one or two of these open wheel machines usually results in them going up into the outside wall, and usually in a big hurry.
So now I'm kind of looking here, and it really seems like a race between the top six. I would say it looks like Caldwell and Tellier kind of have a plan here. I think it's more or less just kind of stay back and see if the top four wreck. Because you got to think, I mean, are they waiting until the final few laps to really make a charge to get up through the field? Or are they waiting for possibly a last lap incident where they can maybe kind of dart their way through and see if they can still win? Well, you got the top four here where you got Teed, Johnson, DeGroot, and Hysong, where it seems kind of the back half may be content with just racing and running there, but obviously it looks like Teed wants to kind of lead the race.
He is going to go to the point, and going back to the point you were just making there about Caldwell and Tellier, one thing they got to do, though, while they want to be sure they manage the gap that if something happened, they'd be able to get through without incident, they also have to make sure they don't lose the draft. Because let's say this thing does go green the rest of the way, the last thing you want to do is find yourself 4 or 5 seconds after losing the draft behind the race leaders during green flag pit stops, because there's almost literally no strategy out there that's going to gain you that time you lost back.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not as great as a road racer as kind of our colleague, Anthony McCurry, but thankfully we have got a fresh pair of eyes from Anthony to kind of tell us, maybe see if they have any strategies or anything he can think of that these drivers may be trying here.
Hi, boys. Glad to be in the booth with you. So, it's cool to watch these guys run around Indianapolis as fast as they are and as limited as cars as there are running around here, but as you see them swapping the lead now, again, T to the inside of the racetrack, Johnson going back into second place. That the reason why that happens quite a bit is because most likely, or it's not most likely, factual is that you can't really get in front for too long at this racetrack without losing any bit of steam. Is now Johnson back to the inside of the racetrack, tries to take it away again, and he does. It's more or less like a super speedway. You just lose any momentum that you had going into anything, and then all the guys behind you get that slipstream down the front straightaway. But as they run right now, Johnson, T, DeGroot running first, second, third, and kind of nice to be at Indianapolis, honestly.
Well, I know we've kind of nailed it home, but I mean, obviously, with the race being shortened to 75 laps, I mean, that's obviously kind of turned on the heat for some of these drivers of, hey, it's kind of go time, but we still have to conserve, because I don't think anyone's fuel tank can really last that long.
No, especially the guy that's leading the race is the reason why these guys are swapping positions, and it might more or less be a strategy that they've made between themselves, but wanting to let the guy in front kind of lead the train and then the guys behind save some fuel. Although I don't think that Johnson had any intention of going that high in the racetrack. He's got a big run going down the front straightaway. Now DeGroot also following short behind, could possibly duck to the inside now, and he does. He thought about it at least, backing out. And fuel runs, these cars burn quite a bit of fuel on a run, and especially when you're going, fifth, sixth gear flat out around the entire racetrack, you burn fuel much quicker if you're in the lead of the race, and that's why you see some of these guys try to get behind the leader. You don't normally expect the guy to want to run second place, but at this place certainly want to. But the fact that the race is shortened, it might entice some of these guys to use a bit of a different strategy. That strategy could be possibly a short pit if they need to come down for fuel.
And, you mentioned about the race being short, and I want to touch on a thing that you mentioned there, Anthony, about wanting to let that driver on by. Usually in the 200 lappers, we end up having a point in the race where the top 3, 4, 5 drivers, they'll size each other up. They admit that they do this. They kind of do a mock run as if it were the final lap, size up just where their strengths are as opposed to the weaknesses of the drivers around them. At what stage of this 75 lapper do we enter into that phase with these top 6 up in this lead group?
more or less, you get into that phase within 10 laps to go. Everything up until that is, like you said, sizing up your opponents, trying to figure out what they can do. But with the way that the leader loses a lot of momentum going into the lead and then having to try and hold the lead when everyone behind has got the slipstream to take off as Johnson goes for the lead again, and easily done. You see, what that'll happen is Johnson got the lead fairly easily going into turn 1. Behind now, you've got Teed, who will get the run, as well as DeGroot will have the run behind. DeGroot right now is the beneficiary of these two battling for the lead of the race, because he's been able to really let off the gas going through the turns and is able to kind of coast through and get some extra fuel mileage. But what these guys will do is that Teed will get a run, maybe coming out of turn 2 and carry the momentum down the back straightaway, and that's where you want to make the move. You don't want to have to wait too long, but you don't want to have too little time in order to make the move as well. So if you get the lead of the race with maybe a half lap to go, or maybe even a lap and a half to go, you've got a pretty good chance of winning the race. Now, that's bearing in mind that somebody behind doesn't have any second thoughts about potentially taking it maybe a 2 or a 3 wide, because again, we got 6 of them in this group, and every one of them's up to speed. So I wouldn't be surprised if, say, Tellier, Cadwell, even Lorea back there might have something to say about it.
Kind of wondering here, we've already talked about the fact, Matt, where, if you have no incident points, you're in the running for that $100 at the end of this thing. But it's going to come down as well to winning this race. And we're going to see drivers in the closing stages try throwing the blocks, trying to make those aggressive moves. But at the same time, you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't want to get any incident points. So do we throw all of that out the window when we get to 3-2 down to that final lap? Or do we see maybe a more relatively calm finish here at Indianapolis, knowing that $100 is on the line?
Here's the thing. I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, even if you do get in an accident, hey, you've got one fast period, put it back in the car, because you may be out of that running for $100, but hey, you still want to win the race. And a lot of these guys are going to be racing scared because they don't want to get any instant points. So if you have a line that you want them to give, you can kind of intimidate them out of the way. Now, here's the question. When the laps start winding down, are you still going to act the same, or are you going to race you a little bit more difficult, hoping that you're going to be cleaner?
I want to lobby that if all these drivers do have incident points, that the pace car driver gets the $100, because he's doing a good job here today. I don't think he's been involved in an incident yet.
I don't think he was texting and driving.
Gonna be closing in on midway through this race in the next 4.5 laps or so. And we're also about maybe 5 laps away from when these drivers gonna have to start thinking. That's Kyle Lura again in the 43. Saw that smoke off of turn 4, and there is the car stopped on the inside of the front straightaway, right in front of the leaders, and the caution is going to fly for that.
He was already struggling pretty well after that bit of contact he had earlier on in the race, and now I think it was more or less a dagger in the heart for 43 team.
He has taken his car back to the garage now. Looks like he'll finish 7th here today. And this started off of turn 4. His car was running awfully low on the racetrack pretty much the entirety of this run, and again, gets those left side tires down there on that, down below that white line, which you've been talking about pretty much the entirety of the day there, Matt, and it just gets him loose, sends him up into the wall, and boy, were we lucky that it took place when it did, because one corner later, that could have been a lot of our race leaders collected up.
Yeah, and I think that's just a little bit of inexperience. I mean, if you looked at how he entered turn 3, I mean, he entered it really shallow. Instead of trying to go almost all the way to the wall and coming back down, I would go to bet that Kyle's more or less kind of an oval NASCAR driver. Nothing bad with that, but just how he enters the corners kind of hits me more as someone who would be trying to race the oval here in a cup car.
I also noticed as we're on board with him, when that car stepped out, he had that wheel turned hard to the right, so that's why it counter-steered as much as it did up into the outside wall. You've got to be very ginger on that steering wheel when you counter-steer it off the corner, or else it's going to hook just like it did. We got drivers, all of them, on pit road here, but according to my calculations, this is not going to be their final pit stop of the day. They're still going to have to pit one more time before this 75-lapper comes to a close.
To get fresh tires for some of these guys might be important. Tire wear is a pretty big thing here, especially when you have higher track temps and you want to be able to get your car to get the best advantage that you can. Is right now Johnson down and away. None of these drivers any slow stop by any means, as Johnson, DeGroot, and Teed will come out first, second, third. But having those fresh tires will certainly help you in the long run, and topping off fuel now will certainly put everybody on the same playing field. And I think that's the most important thing for these 6 in front, is to make sure that you're even within a shot of being around somebody for a chance to get it. If they can run single file nose to tail for the rest of the race, then essentially it's a super speedway race for these guys at this point in time. So not a bad strategy. And in real IndyCar racing, you see this as well, is where everyone kind of wants to stay within eye shot of each other, especially within a slipstream of each other. That way they never lose touch with the main pack or even the lead of the race. So good call for everyone to come down this early to get some tires and fuel.
Third caution of the day here at Indianapolis. We've had 11 lead changes so far in this race. Relatively been under the green flag for a good portion of the first half of this event. 221 mile per hour average speed. 6 drivers on the track, all 6 currently on the lead lap. 4 drivers officially in the garage area, from 7th place Lura down to 10th place Hurt. Jimmy Drinan and Lonnie Downs sit on pit road, both of them 35 laps down. Doesn't look like either one of them have any intention of coming out onto the racetrack here. So it looks like it's just going to be these 6 that are going to settle it out for the victory here today. We're going to step aside for a quick commercial break, and we'll be back here for the green flag momentarily as you're watching the Drinan Garage Doors 500 at Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Welcome, race fans. This is Paul Page, the voice of IndyCars. And today we're excited to present another IndyCar event brought to you by the Dark Horse IndyCar Series. From the Unzers to Mears, Foyt, and Andretti, now it's Corley, Peterson, Davies, Gardner, and Teed. You can expect high speeds, incredible wheel-to-wheel action, and intense drama that you could only get in an IndyCar. So sit back and enjoy your favorite drivers from all over the world take the track. Dark Horse IndyCar drivers, start your engine. Welcome, race fans. This is Paul Page, the voice of IndyCars. And today we're excited to present another IndyCar event brought to you by the Dark Horse IndyCar Series. From the Unzers to Mears, Foyt, and Andretti, now it's Corley.
Pace car ready to make the left-hand turn to pit road. We'll be just about at the halfway point here of the Drinan Garage Doors 500 at Indianapolis, and Charles M. Johnson going to get us back underway. 6 drivers, half dozen left to settle it out here for this victory, and about half this race distance left to go. Charles Johnson, Nick DeGroot, Charles T, Jeff Heisong, Mike Teller, and Max Caldwell. They're the ones to settle it out. And boys, we've got one more pit stop on the horizon for these guys. I'm going to assume this is a rhetorical question, but I'll ask it anyway. We stretch it as far as we can here before coming to pit road, right?
Absolutely. Within reason, you stretch it as far as you can, because you don't want to have what happened a couple of years ago in the 500 where some guys were running out of fuel with 3 laps to go and had to be a fuel mileage race where, Rossi won that race. But DeGroot, Johnson, Teed, all these 6 drivers that are in the running, they definitely want to be able to make it to the end of the race, but they don't want to have it come down to having to half throttle through the turns in order to make that happen. As they stand right now, another pit stop somewhere around, I'd say, a lap 55, maybe somewhere between 55 and 60. That'll comfortably get you to the end of the race, no problem. You could probably stretch it if you go before 55, maybe around lap 50. You could probably stretch it to the end of the race, but your tires will be worn down by then. It's a lot of strategy that goes into balancing tire wear versus balancing fuel run, and these guys having to run next nose to tail with each other, especially you got guys kind of hanging back now, like Tellier and Caldwell. They've kind of lost touch with the lead four, especially Caldwell, trying to catch up and stay within eye shot of these guys. But if he can get back in this draft, then all is well, especially these guys running like High Song, Tellier, Caldwell. If they continue to run back here, they'll be able to save a lot more fuel, so they might be able to stretch it just a little bit more.
I want to make an apology here too. I went back during that commercial break and was looking at last season's Indy 500 back in. Oh, contact!
Oh, that could have been
43. They had to split the 43, and Charles Teed had to go down to the access road to avoid that.
Everyone got away with it.
Wow.
Teed lost a lot of momentum on that one. He's fallen back to 6 out of 6, so have to get back up there.
I think that actually will take Teed out of the running for his own prize.
I was going to say, was that an incident point? I thought he made contact with the 43.
No, but he actually made no contact with the 43, but he did cross over to grass, which does count as a 1X off track.
Oh, wow. That's a tough break there for Charles Teed. Not only in danger of leading the lead pack, which actually I think he's just latched onto again, so good news in that regard, but as Matt just pointed out, with crossing over into infield grass, that puts you with an incident point and takes you out of the running for that $100 bonus here. But I looked back at last year's Indy 500 for the Dark Horse Racing Series, and I said Nick DeGroot was the winner of that race. That was actually incorrect. DeGroot actually won the race prior to that at Auto Club. It was actually Matt Wagner that won the Indianapolis 500. So actually DeGroot is looking for his first Indy 500 or Indy 500 related race under the Dark Horse banner ever here today.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Like, I saw Matt Wagner ended up putting in the comments that he won the race, and almost seemed like he got a little bit frustrated.
I wouldn't blame him.
Especially if you win a big prestigious race such as the 500. But, you know, DeGroot running lead of the race right now. He's got Johnson behind him. These guys, any win at Indianapolis for these guys is pretty big, and we talk about in NASCAR how if you get a win at Daytona, no matter what capacity, now obviously you want to win the Daytona 500 if you drive stock cars, but if you want to get any win at Daytona whatsoever, I think for a while they ran on the back straightaway with some of the lesser known series or the feeder series into NASCAR, and they even those drivers, they were saying that if they got a win on the backstretch, they'd still a Daytona win. You got the Rolex 24, you've got the super bikes, you've got a lot of Daytona races that happen, and that's pretty big. And then you move over to IndyCar and you move over to open wheel racing, and Formula One used to race here. You've got the IndyCar that runs the Indianapolis 500. You've got the Indy GP now, and any win that you can get at this racetrack, no matter what capacity, and even in this race, it carries over to this one as well. It's a special event, a limited field, but still, if you can get this win, not only do you have $100 on the line, but you also have bragging rights that you got to win at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the Indy 500 configuration as well.
And it's interesting too when they put that $100 bonus on the line, because you go into a special event, your mentality is entirely different than it would be if you were going into an event with points on the line. But when you put that little caveat of that you can't have any incident points here in order to remain in the running for that bonus, it almost puts these guys back in the same mentality that they would be if they came in a points-paying event.
Yeah, you got tiptoeing around this racetrack, trying not to cause anything to happen. And there's not much room for error in these cars to begin with, but then you add that little extra bit. And that's what kind of sends it into a bit of a more on-edge race for some of these strategists and all that. But as they go around the track now, Seth, I want to ask both you and Matt this question. Out of what we've seen so far today, and knowing that we still have quite a ways to go, without commentator cursing anybody, out of the 6 that we've got running up the top field at the moment, who do you have that you're looking at that might potentially be the best in favor to win this race? Because I know what mine are just by watching the few laps or so that I've been in the booth with you guys, and a couple have stuck out to me, but I want to get your takes on it.
Pick rock, paper, scissors, or obviously,
no particular order.
Obviously, I'm a little bit biased here. I'm looking at Tellier, but not for the reason you might think. I mean, obviously, the FRN car, very nice. I cannot wait for the curse to kill him. However, I'm just kind of watching him, and he's kind of laying back here. You see Nick DeGroot pull off down to the pit lane.
Yeah, he's coming to pit lane a lot sooner than I expected. I think he's actually pitting when the fuel window opens. So Now, we were all in agreement of, yeah, you're going to go until that fuel tank is nearly empty. DeGroot, on the other hand, is going to short pit the rest of the field.
Yeah, the undercut's powerful, especially if you can get it to work well. Now, at this track, I don't know how well you're going to get it to work, given the fact that you need to be running in a group of cars to kind of stay within that group, but it might work out wonders for him as it's gas, and that's it. Only fuel this run, and he's back.
Well, going back to your question there, Anthony, obviously, as I pointed out there with that little mishap of the statistic of DeGroot and Wagner, you can only rely on about 80% of my memory and 50% of my eyesight. So I think I owe Nick DeGroot one here, but I'm also going to pick him just for the fact that, in the previous Indy 500s as well, he is the highest finishing of drivers that are still left in the running for this one. He finished second back in Season 2. The next highest of a driver that's in this field would be Jeff Hysong. That was back in Season 2 where he finished outside the top 10 and 11. So if you're looking in terms of the former numbers here at Indianapolis under the Dark Horse banner, you've got to look at that 89. And I owe Matt Wagner something nice to say about him at Chicagoland next week, or this coming Wednesday as well.
As they run, Johnson, Caldwell, Hysong now the top three. And my pick would be Johnson. Charles Johnson has done exceptionally well so far and able to keep everyone kind of in check. He's kind of been running not in the lead too much, but he has been running in the lead quite a bit as of late. So if you get, and he's been able to hold off guys when, I say that, he's going to concede the lead to Caldwell now, but he's been able to hold off guys when he needs to and is got the wherewithal to also go back into second place when he needs to. He actually kind of tried to have a little look there at Caldwell, but I think he's thinking better of it. In fact, he's going to try the short pit as well. The undercut for Charles Johnson about ready to happen.
So Johnson's going to pit with roughly 26 laps remaining in this event. Nick DeGroot all by his lonesome there in the 89. And the thing of it is, too, obviously projected fuel is going to be entirely different with a car that's running in draft to a car that's running with no draft whatsoever. So it's going to be very interesting to see if the exact number was hit for Nick DeGroot when he came to pit road for him to have enough fuel to make it to the conclusion of this race if we don't have a caution come out between now and then.
I think more or less that's what Charles Johnson was thinking. Is you could see just how powerful the cut was, though. There goes Nick DeGroot. That's going to be a major advantage that he's going to have coming out of turn 2, and now Johnson's going to have to try and catch up to that, but that might be what Johnson was thinking, is running by yourself, you do use a lot more fuel than if you were in a group, to your point. So having that little bit of extra knowledge, he might have to stretch it a little bit longer, just enough that you can account for that extra fuel burn that you'll have running solo.
I'm actually looking at this here, and Nick DeGroot pulled a 5.5 pretty much box time. Johnson pulled an 8.1. I think Johnson got tires.
I think he did too. I think you're right. Fuel only for the 89 and tires for the 9 of Charles Johnson. Another thing I'm noticing here too is these guys up here, this group of 4,
3 wide already.
Whoa! Maxwell Caldwell, I think he was going to go low and all of a sudden saw Charles Teed there to his driver's left, so he had to kind of back out of that situation. But Nick DeGroot right now is actually tracking lap times faster than 3 of our top 4 the last 2 laps. Teed was faster this lap and Hysong was faster the last lap, but that was only because the 2 of them were using the slipstream to make passes for the lead out of turn 4.
And Jeff Hysong able to get the lead out of all of that 3 wide mess, and that's something that I haven't seen so far today and until now, but that was incredible, seeing just how well they were able to make 3 wide work. Usually you can't do that. Charles T now to the inside of the racetrack, going to take the lead back from Hysong. Hysong conceding the position, almost got Caldwell to his inside, but a little bit high on the racetrack goes Hysong. Oh, they almost came together at the exit of turn 2. That could have been bad, but now drag race down the straight, and it's going to be Hysong getting the advantage off of that. Now, when do you pit if you're these 4, the ones that haven't pit yet? Do you come down together, or do you stretch it all the way? Do you come down maybe a little bit short, try to make it and stretch the advantage? What is your strategy? And I think we know what Tellier's strategy is, because he's come down pit road this time by.
I think you got to come with at least one other car. That's just my opinion, because the last thing you want to do is have the green flag cycle be completed, come out all by yourself and somebody up ahead of you has a drafting partner, because they're obviously going to turn a lot better lap times in draft, especially on the straightaways, than you are all by your lonesome. So we'll see if these three, if they come down together, or if two of these three come down together, but I'm going to be very shocked if we end up seeing all three of these drivers come down by their lonesome on 3 separate laps.
Could be a case of maybe wanting to pull off what Tellier, DeGroot, and Johnson have, but yeah, I agree with you. I don't think we're going to see them come down separately as they continue to battle Teed down to the inside of High Song, who is using that outside line, and I'm very surprised that he's been able to get that outside line to work. Usually that's a death sentence where all the rubber gets accumulated at the top, can't get any traction, but he's been able to rocket down the straights. He's been able to, what's helping him is Teed has gone to the high side of the racetrack rather than snake into the inside, and look at this, High Song with the momentum. And that's why you want to time your run at the end of the race. You don't want to have that happen because the guy behind is going to battle right back, and in this case, if Teed was the one challenging for the lead of the race, we would see it down the straight, and I think that Teed would have been close, but Teed, I think if he had a little bit more run, would have gotten that, so that's why you got to time your runs properly.
In the line, officially 20 laps to go, by the way, in this event. Matt, I think the 61 of Mike Tellier might have taken on tires here as well. So both he and Johnson electing to go with the fresh tires, but it doesn't really seem like it's helped them in track position against Nick DeGroot.
Well, originally I was going to cite the tires as a bad idea, but honestly, I don't think it was that terrible of an idea because it put both Johnson and Tellier together while DeGroot's still running alone.
Been able to swap position in order to save some fuel, or these two doing it, Tellier and Johnson. Use one lap, it'll be Tellier in front. The next time by, it'll be Johnson in front. So these guys using what they knew in the group of 6, now down to a duo. And speaking of the group of 3 now, they're right behind these two. Back in, coming out down the back straightaway, you've got Teed, High Song, and Caldwell thundering down, trying to catch them. Now, interestingly enough, DeGroot and Johnson, because of the fresh tires, are running faster lap times than the group behind them, so they're not any immediate threat of being put a lap down. And if they continue to run this quickly around the racetrack, the pit delta, I believe, is somewhere around 28 seconds, maybe about a little bit less than that. So that would put them pretty much on par with where they were running before they came down pit road. So I think if you're going based off of wanting to get your stop done and out of the way, then I think that was pretty much the best strategy that these two could have come up with.
Johnson and Tellier, they took on tires. Johnson came down with about 30 to go. Tellier came down with about 25 to go. If these top 3 continue to run the way they are and continue to stay out, when they come down pit road, they've kind of boxed themselves in. They have to go with fuel only, right?
Yeah, at this point, you have to come down with fuel only. I don't think that you're going to be able to take on tires and be able to come out anywhere close to be DeGroot and Tellier, because just the way that they've been able to make it work, DeGroot, Tellier, and Johnson make that, but the way that they've been able to make this work is because they came down so early and was able to take on tires. They had the freedom of having, number one, a clean pit road. Getting onto pit road in a group of cars is not an easy task, and if you have to worry about the guy in front of you, it can slow down your pit road entry. And these guys behind also knowing that they have that short run, and because DeGroot, Johnson, Tellier, they're able to really extend the runs out. They've been able to use their fresh tires in order to gain that advantage, because they had fresh tires about 10 laps prior to coming down pit road, and then all of a sudden they're coming down pit road again. So they only had 10 lap all tires. These guys running now are getting close to, I believe, I'm looking at what their stint lap is now. They have been 24 laps on this stint. So 24 lap all tires as opposed to 10 lap all tires, and you've put on essentially fresh tires again. They never got to get those tires broken in, so this lead group definitely struggling for tire wear, and they would most certainly have to take... it's an interesting situation. You'd actually have to take on tires and risk losing some position, or take on tires at the risk of losing more momentum, because those guys in front, they're going to have old tires for sure, but at the same time, we're actually going to have fresher tires. So it's an interesting game that these guys are playing. There's a lot of variables to go into making that strategy work, and there's too many to really go through, because each of these drivers are probably thinking something completely different.
when Charles Teed hit the line that last time by. 15 laps to go. 6 drivers in the hunt for this win, but 7 drivers out on the track. The 66 of Lonnie Downs is out on the racetrack now. Came onto the racing surface about 10 laps ago, is now moved up into the 10th position. Did not take the green flag to start this race, but at least going to run the latter portion of this special event here today.
These 3 out front continue to battle at the moment. No one looking like they're too serious about getting on pit road at the moment. They have crossed into that threshold of being able to make it to the end of the race for sure. So it's only a matter of a few laps time before we see them all come down pit road. Johnson, Tellier continuing to run single file behind, each of them using the other to get some advantage on fuel. As you can see, Tellier also practicing a bit for the end of the race, getting the pass done on Johnson yet again. And Nick DeGroot running all by himself, but being able to be consistent. I was thinking that it might be a case of being able to lose some time, but he's been able to really run out there by himself and not lose too much speed. Now, he is running slower lap times than the drivers that are in groups, the group of 3 in front and then the duo behind. So it certainly is beneficial to be in a group, but not critical, as he's only losing about 1/10 of a second per lap.
Here's the thing I'm noticing, this battle back here, this duo of Charles Johnson and Mike Tellier, while they do have a 2-to-1 advantage of cars and a pack to DeGroot up ahead of them, they are now only about maybe 4.2 seconds behind Nick DeGroot. They were 5 seconds behind last I looked, but that was 10 laps ago. So while they are cutting into the advantage between themselves and the 89, they're not doing it that quickly, and the laps are ticking down.
Yeah, not a lot of time to run out, and if DeGroot can make it to the end of the race, then that might be just what seals it. Now, the question is, he came down the earliest out of anybody. He didn't take tires. He is running all by himself. The benefit that Johnson and Tellier have is they're in a group and they can swap positions in order to save fuel. DeGroot does not have that luxury. Right now, he's running 5th gear constantly.
Here we go. Top 3 all coming to pit road together. Teed, Highsong, and Caldwell closing on 10 to go.
I would dare say that Highsong might have almost got caught speeding on pit road. He got a little bit of acceleration as they came down, but got off the throttle. The strategy for these guys, what'll it be? Do you reckon tires, or do you think no tires?
Well, I'm wondering about that 94 of Maxwell Caldwell, because he smoked those tires getting on the brakes coming to that commitment line. If he goes with fuel only, those Firestones are going to be burning up, and they're jacking them up. They're going to change the tires on these machines, it looks like.
They are. Highsong was the first one to get tires. Teed, Caldwell also getting tires. Highsong passes Teed. They're out on the racetrack, and there goes DeGroot. So that is how powerful the undercut is at this speedway. DeGroot pitted early, and now we'll have about, I would say, a 10-second lead at most.
See what it is going to translate to as Caldwell's going to come off pit lane ahead of Highsong and Teed. They're not only going to lose the race lead, but they may end up losing spots inside the podium. They're going to just barely latch on to Mike Tellier and Charles Johnson, who bypassed the both of them on the back straightaway.
So I was a bit over-calculating the lead that DeGroot would have until actually about 4 seconds, but still, that is a pretty significant lead. Now, the benefit for these guys now is that these 5 are running in a group, and DeGroot is not. These 5 will most likely more than not catch up to DeGroot. Now, do we have enough laps to do it is the next question. We're running very short on laps, under 10 to go.
Going to be actually 10 to go that last time by when DeGroot hit the start-finish line, and the gap has now been cut down to almost 4 seconds between DeGroot and this group of 5. Tellier, Johnson, Caldwell, and Highsong all together. Charles Teed just at the tail end of this group, trying to remain in the draft. I think he might barely have the slipstream of the 18 of Highsong, so he might be able to catch up to this pack. But you talked about the ability to get such big runs here, Anthony. Obviously, that's going to make things difficult for these 4 or 5 to stay lined up nose to tail.
Oh, Highsong's in the wall.
Big wreck.
And
Jeff Highsong and Maxwell Caldwell have gotten together, and this is in the closing stage of this race. I think we'll get back green in regulation, but that's certainly not what Nick DeGroot wanted to see.
Absolutely not. DeGroot had an advantage, and if he continued to run that advantage, he would have been able to keep the lead with the amount of laps left, and now High Song and Caldwell find themselves heavily damaged, and Caldwell trying to limp back to pit road, but that looks like a very poorly 94.
Let's find out exactly what happened over in turn 1. Watch the blue machine there of Caldwell. High Song to his inside, and wow, it almost looks like the 18 never turned. And I want to go back, Anthony, to what I mentioned about how both he and Caldwell, they came in really hot to pit road. I wonder if maybe warming up those front tires with how hard they got on the brakes, if maybe that might have caused the issue.
It could have very well have had something to play into it. Now, and I agree, it does not look like at all that Caldwell came in. I think he might have came in with a bit too much speed, though. The cold tires, trying to get them up to temps. It was only a couple of laps that they've been running on these tires, and that was a pretty aggressive move into turn 1, and just sailed it in, and the slightest bit of contact takes both him and High Song out of the race. High Song very unceremoniously dumped going backwards down the short chute into turn 2, but those two were some of the fastest in this group, and now all of a sudden, this group of 6 is now down to a group of 4.
So just ended up speaking to Nick DeGroot, how he's feeling about being on some old tires, and the whole field has brand new tires. He gave me a one-word, colorful word that I cannot repeat.
Honestly,
so I'd be going out to say that I don't know if he's that confident at the moment.
Honestly,
bets are
same.
open, and are they all going to come down?
Oh, this might change things.
Could level the playing field. Teed's going to stay out.
Oh, now that's some strategy. Teed, well, think about it this way. Teed had just come down and gotten tires. He does not need anything else, so it's only a couple of laps that these tires have been used. I don't necessarily disagree with this strategy. You're good to go on fuel. You've got relatively fresher tires than anyone behind you, and there's only 4 cars realistically challenging you for the lead. You might be able to hold on to it.
Oh, Caldwell trying to get into his pit stall, but he has that one right front tire that's still tethered, but not really attached to his race car. He couldn't get it turned into his pit stall. Now he has to wait on pit road for all the leaders to go on by as they complete their pit stops. I'm thinking here in terms of the strategy of Charles Teed as well. As mentioned, Matt mentioned about the fact with him going down to the infield grass, that could more than likely put him in the incident point category, take him out of the running for that bonus. So now, you kind of have carte blanche. You can go out there, you can be aggressive, you can use your race car to try and win this thing.
It's all about bragging rights at this point for the driver of the 05, and again, it goes back to the point made earlier. Any win at Indianapolis, if you're in these cars, has got to feel special. So why not go for it? For Nick DeGroot, that caution could not have come at a worse/better time. DeGroot had the lead, had a big gap, 4 seconds that were not really degrading. He could have run out the rest of the race comfortably in the lead of the race. That much is known. Now, what this does mean is that he's been able to come down and get fresher tires. So if the group of cars did end up catching him, then he would be on level playing field with them. And obviously, because of the yellow coming out, everyone got together anyway. So having that little bit of extra fuel, because we forgot to mention that he might have been short on fuel ever so slightly. So being able to come down and get fuel, fresh tires, we've seen how well the slipstream works for these guys. I would imagine that he's kind of a bit frustrated, but also breathing a bit of a sigh of relief.
Appreciate everybody that's watching our coverage here today of the Drinan Garage Doors 500 at Indianapolis under the Dark Horse Racing Series banner. And to answer AJ Musselman's question in our YouTube comments, the 3 drivers that came down pit road, yes, they all took on tires on that pit stop. So Charles Teed's going to have about maybe 1.5, 2 lap older tires to the rest of the competition behind him. Maxwell Caldwell did manage to limp his machine back to pit road, did take on his faster pair, but he lost a lap in the process. So there will only be 4 drivers to settle this thing out for what looks like it's going to be a 5-lap shootout when the pace car hits pit lane.
And in these 5 laps, you'll see everything that these drivers have been testing earlier in the race come to fruition. All of the passing done, as Seth alluded to earlier, sizing each other up, knowing what your opponents can do in what parts of the racetrack, and then being able to base your strategy off of that. We're all going to see what everyone has learned throughout these last 70 or so laps all come into the end of the race, and I would not be surprised if we see a last lap pass, and I also wouldn't be surprised if we see an extra bit of contact between some of these drivers. But Teed, DeGroot, Johnson, Tellier, and Caldwell is running 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Caldwell came out, had taken a faster pair. He's out of the running for the $100 bonus, but still within a shot of winning the race as we get ready to set them up for 5 laps around Indianapolis.
And even with being a lap down and maybe not in the running for this win, let's bear in mind Maxwell Caldwell could be the proverbial X factor of helping somebody get the draft they need to get to the front to win this race. As 5 laps to go here at Indianapolis, Teed gets us back underway. DeGroot, Charles Johnson follow him into turn 1.
And DeGroot with a really good kind of sized up, kind of let the 05 go, and now he's going to try and charge down the back straightaway. He's got the run coming out of 2, and there he goes to the inside of the racetrack, goes to the 98, or make that the 89 rather, to the inside going into turn 3. Can he get the run through? Yes, he can. He's going to go through. Johnson thinking about it as well, but it's hanging back behind Teed.
Now Teed going to be the driver that'll get the run through 3 and 4. We'll see if he tries a counter move here down the front straightaway. DeGroot, though, going to move as low to that inside wall as he possibly can, take away any opportunity for Teed to challenge him for the top spot. Johnson's going to go to the top side on the 05, and now Teed's going to jump up there to look for the lead in 1.
Defensive driving on part of DeGroot. Now Teed trying to get back to the inside of the racetrack. Expect DeGroot to go down to the inside of the racetrack this time around. He does, all the way to the white line. Can the 05 get the run on the outside line? He's got Johnson with him. Can they get the outside line to work in turn 3 is the question. That might be a bit more difficult as DeGroot continues to lead.
Boy, Teed's able to get himself almost completely alongside, about 3/4 of the way alongside the passenger of the 89, but just cannot seem to complete the pass by the time they get to the center of the corner. He'll jump to the top side again, try once more with 3 laps remaining in Indianapolis.
What Teed's got to do now is time his run so he gets him going into a turn rather than, or gets him coming out of a turn rather than getting a momentum going into a turn. Right now is where he needs to have the momentum. That way he can carry it through. Maybe try it in the short chute, but now to the outside of the racetrack goes Teed. Lap after lap, time after time, he tries to make this work, and that isn't, but of course, if Johnson doesn't think about taking it 3 wide, he almost thought about it.
He certainly did. He stuck his nose in there, backed out of it, though, as Nick DeGroot, that white line is his best friend. He is keeping his left sides as close as possible there, forcing Charles Teed, if he's going to win this race, to do it the longer way around the racetrack. Back to the stripe they come. DeGroot by about a wing led that lap, 2 to go. Bear in mind, if Teed can get a big enough run out of turn 4, he might not necessarily need to complete a pass about DeGroot. He just needs to be first back to the start-finish line, so we'll keep tabs on that in these final 2 laps.
DeGroot's trying to not leave any bit of gap on the inside line, taking it all the way down to the white line. He left a bit of a gap open on the front straightaway, 3 wide for the lead for a moment. And now to the sailing into the high side goes Teed. That opens the door for Johnson to slip into the inside of the racetrack. This is a battle for second place, and this could be everything that seals Teed's chances at maybe getting a win, because now here comes to make that Johnson to the inside, but Tellier on the outside pushing Teed.
That's going to be Max Caldwell up there as well in the 94. Now he backs out of the throttle, letting the top 3 battle amongst themselves here on this final lap. Teed's going to clear Johnson for second. Got one more shot down this back straightaway to set up Nick DeGroot for the win here at Indianapolis. Here we go. 3 drivers, 1 straightaway, 2 corners left to go.
How aggressive do you be going into turn 3 is the question, and Johnson looked like he was trying to pull it in. But DeGroot outside line. Does the inside line get the advantage? Yes, it does. There might have been a little bit of wing contact between the 2 of them. DeGroot to the inside. Drag race down the front straightaway. Who gets here first? It's going to be Nick DeGroot by a winglet down the front straightaway. And that was perfection.
Looking for the official interval between those 2. I think it was in the thousandths from first back to third place, as Johnson was able to get a run, make it 3 wide to the start finish line. But you said it, a winglet. I think that's all it was, with Nick DeGroot barely edging out Charles Teed and Charles Johnson for the victory here at Indianapolis. His first win at Indy under the Dark Horse banner, and it comes in a big one here in the Drinan Garage Doors 500.
That was 2 wide, 3 wide at the line because Johnson had a run. He had one wicked run coming out of turn 3, and I didn't know if he had anywhere to take it. Certainly the inside of the racetrack was blocked up due to Nick DeGroot being on the inside line, but he swung out to the outside. If there had been just a few meters more racetrack, Teed would have taken this win, and I would bet that Charles Johnson might have had something a little bit more to say, because he had one whale of a run. I think he was running about 5 miles an hour faster coming out of turn 4 than everyone else in front of him was, but that was a photo finish for the ages.
No doubt about it. Let's take a look here at a freeze frame of what it looked like at the start-finish line, and that's just how close it was right there, folks. 3 wide to the start-finish line, and you're right. I think maybe another 20 yards. Charles Teed had the momentum out of turn 4 onto the front straightaway. He would have won this race, but Nick DeGroot just barely hanging on to that top position to pick up the victory here at Indianapolis. It's going to be Charles Teed finishing second. Third place will be Charles Johnson. Fourth, Mike Tellier. And Maxwell Caldwell, albeit 1 lap down, he's going to complete the top 5. And unfortunately, we won't be able to show you the full finish results here, because obviously with it being a shortened race, the standings are somewhat askew at this point in time, with drivers running around here under cooling laps and whatnot. But the rest of the top 10 are going to look like this, with Jeff Hysong in 6th. 7th will be Kyle Lura. Lonnie Downs was able to pick up a number of spots there in the closing stages to finish 8th. Alistair Kirk in 9th. And Furkan Durakoglu in 10th. Tyler Hurt and Jimmy Drinan complete the field for the rest of this race.
What a finish that was. And Nick DeGroot, you got to give him credit. When he pitted earlier, he could have won this race without having that happen. He could have, if the late yellow hadn't come out between High Song and Caldwell, if that had to have happened, then I do think that DeGroot had the pace in order to make the win without having a last lap battle for the lead of the race. But he was able to hold to the inside, and that's something that in Indianapolis, that if you can do, then you've basically got the best shot at winning a race. But being able to get to the inside of the racetrack, hold fast that inside line, make it so you take away any momentum on that side, because Johnson had a run, and if he had taken it to the inside of the racetrack without having to swing up to the outside, he might have been able to jump both him and Teed at the line. But because he was able to get to the inside, keep that momentum, give credit to Teed as well, been able to time the run. He almost timed it perfectly. Could have had a shot at it, but just, so close, and you couldn't have fit an entire wing housing right in front of that.
Well, you almost wonder what the story would have been if we had run this race under green after that green flag cycle, if DeGroot had been able to hold them off to pick up the victory. But man, he had to work for it here in what was going to be a 5-lap shootout to decide this race. He was able to do so. Not only does he pick up the win, but he goes coast to coast, pole to win here today at Indianapolis. Matt mentioned earlier on when that caution came out, he said a word that we couldn't have on the broadcast. I think the word he said when he crossed the line, though, was woohoo. We're going to go down and we're going to talk with him in victory lane right now. Hey, Nick, Anthony, Matt, and Seth up here in the FRM booth. Got us?
Yeah, I gotcha.
All right, man. Well, obviously, things were looking good for you when we were running under green there. Just after the pit stop cycles had completed, you had 4 seconds between yourself and the next competitor. But then the caution came out. We understood you had some frustration there, but you were able to hold them off. How nerve-wracking was that 5-lap shootout?
Oh, man, it was really nerve-wracking because, you're not going anywhere. The second that caution comes out, I'm like, all right, 1, I need tires. 2, this is going to be a photo finish no matter what happens. So just trying to set myself up for that. Wanted to get the lead, get to the bottom, and just try my best to hold off Teed and Johnson there. I knew they were going to get some big runs and get close, and I was real worried when Teed stayed on my door there entering turn 3, because if he had held that through 4, I think he would have been able to drag me back and take it. Because so that was crazy race. It was an awesome race, and I'm excited. That was just fun. I love running this track, running these cars.
Certainly that photo finish at the line was one of the best that I've seen in recent memory. 3 wide, you on the inside, Teed in the middle, and then Johnson snaking it up to the outside line of the racetrack. But I want to ask a question, because I didn't quite know what the fuel run might have been, but you came down pit road the earliest out of everybody on that last run. And I was speculating that you might be short on fuel based on being running by yourself instead of in a pack of cars, or even with another buddy to help you out, being able to draft off of him, swapping positions. Were you short on fuel? Was that a concern, or were you comfortable making it to the end if it did go green all the way to the end?
Well, I was watching that very carefully because I was maxed out in fifth gear and it was burning a lot of fuel. And from what I was able to do with the math in my head, it looked like I was going to run out coming to the line, like on the front stretch. But if I just maintained that 4-second lead, then I still would have been fine. But yeah, I would have had a smoked right rear and an empty tank coming across that line if it stayed green.
I think we've still got Matt here. We'll see if he's got a question for you.
I really have to ask. I mean, obviously, I popped in and asked you about those tires. I mean, were you kind of rethinking that decision? Because I noticed you were really the only one of those green flag pit stops that didn't take tires.
I was confident that if it could get me in front of them and nobody else did it, it would be worth it. I was confident that I could hang on to them and use some negative weight jacker. But if anybody else did it, or if there was a caution like there was at the end, then I would have been in trouble. Thankfully, this wasn't a huge field, so I was able to take tires and not lose a bunch of track position there and was right back to an even playing field. So, yeah, it's always a risk to do that strategy here. A little less of a risk today, but still always a risk. I like to do it, though. It's how I won that race against Forsyth in Area 51 earlier this year.
You know, obviously, Nick, there's a certain point in these type of races, especially at Indianapolis with these type of cars, where we kind of call it the sizing up period, where you guys kind of do a little bit of a mock run, kind of pretend that it was the final lap and figure out where your strengths and their weaknesses are. We ended up having that long green flag run, saw the pit stop split everybody up, and then when that caution comes out, it's a 5-lap shootout, so everybody's gunning for the win there. There's no time to be able to kind of go to school, figure out who's got what. So was there any point in this race where there was a feeling out process, or did you not even have that in this 75 lapper?
Not really, especially because the guys I was racing kind of knew who I was racing with, Charles and Teed and Jeff and those guys. You kind of know how they race, you know how to race them, you know how they're going to race you. So the only people to really feel out were most of the new guys who mostly fell out early, with the exception of Maxwell, who I got to say ran an awesome race. He did a really good job. He kept saying throughout the race, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know anything, but he was up there in the top 5 almost that entire race. So props to him.
Also got to address this. Obviously, we're going to be seeing you Wednesday night as we continue on the 4th season of the Dark Horse Racing Series, and you're looking for your first victory there this season, trying to be a 2-time champion as well. I know this is a special event, but nonetheless, being under the Dark Horse banner, what does this do as far as momentum for you going into Chicagoland on Wednesday night?
Yeah, it feels good. I was already excited for that event. I love the 1.5 milers, the intermediate tracks, and going into it with a win can't hurt, you know? Of course, we didn't have Robin Henry here, so I'm sure they would have made it really tough on all of us. But yeah, any track time is good track time, so it only helps.
Well, Nick, congratulations on a well-deserved victory coast to coast here at Indianapolis. We're now going to give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, Factory Back Motorsports as always, Covymore.com, Motorsport.com, all the other great sponsors that support us, and Drinan Garage Doors, who help support this race and put up the money for it. So that was awesome by Jimmy, and yeah, just great event that they were able to put together here almost overnight.
Well, Nick DeGroot gets to celebrate, and Victory Lane gets to kiss the yard of bricks here in the Drinan Garage Doors 500 at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Congratulations on a great victory there, Nick. Go and enjoy it.
Thank you, guys.
Well, it was a little bit shortened than what it was originally going to be, but it delivered up to the hype that usually most Indianapolis Motor Speedway races do, especially with these open wheel cars. And it came down to a shootout. You know that when it's going to come down to a shootout, it doesn't matter how many laps left, these guys are going to put it all on the line, leave nothing on the table. And that was certainly the case here with a 3-wide battle at the start-finish line with the checkered flag in hand.
Oh, yeah. Every time that you have a chance for a shootout, and like you said, it definitely it always amazes me every time that we see one happen, especially with cars that have a ton of aerodynamics on it that you can really throw it into a turn and basically be flat out wherever you go. It's always fun to watch them right on the ragged edge and try to get any advantage they possibly can. And DeGroot did a masterclass on how to keep make that 3 really, but 3 very hungry drivers behind him. And for the amount of laps he did it in, that was textbook driving. Now, he might have been playing a bit of cat and mouse earlier in the race too, because he was more than willing to let people bypass him and overtake him going through up until the last yellow, or really when he came down pit road and lost touch with the rest of the cars. But I think that he was just kind of playing a little bit, knowing that late in the race they wouldn't expect him to go to the inside of the racetrack as aggressively as he did. And then all of a sudden, when he started doing it, all these drivers had to figure out, well, what do we do now? We haven't practiced taking a position when he goes to the inside of the racetrack. So what are we going to do in order to get by him? And you only have 5 laps to figure it out. That right there might have been the move that won in the race, has been able to hold kind of hold what he had in his pocket until the very end when it really mattered. And if you ever want to learn how to drive Indianapolis, look no further than the drive that Nick DeGroot pulled tonight.
We talked about the fact that DeGroot in the Dark Horse Racing Series Indy 500 back in Season 2 finished runner-up at this very racetrack. Obviously, Mike Tellier, Charles Johnson, Charles T, Jeff Heisong, these are drivers that we see on the regular on Wednesday nights, and Indianapolis is going to be the season finale for this 4th season of Dark Horse Racing Series as well. Any information that these drivers here with the special event could have gleaned that they can apply when we eventually get to the Brickyard in the season schedule?
Absolutely. The fuel runs are important, and if you can get into a group of cars, because you heard what Nick DeGroot said, he was running out of fuel at the end of the race. He had to stay in 5th gear in order to keep speed up. And when you run higher revs, obviously you burn more fuel. Being that he came in about when the pit window opened and then tried to run the entire way, and he said if it had gone all the way to the end of the race, you would have ran out of gas going to the line. Now, that would have still won in the race, but if you have to battle with somebody, you don't want to have that situation be what gets a win taken away from you. So that one's a big one. Another big one is that just be aware that the tires do play a big factor into this race. And yes, it adds 3 seconds to your overall pit time, but at the end of the race, if you have fresher tires, then again, look no further than what example DeGroot said. DeGroot said that he was running his right side tires were basically on the edge of their usefulness. So he would have maybe run, if we were running a longer race, maybe you've been able to go maybe 5-10 laps longer than he did. But at the very most, that would have been a little bit of a harder drive to pull off. He would have run out of fuel way before then. But you don't want to have to battle with tires that are a lot less than healthy. And knowing that all of that info could be taken to the race, and especially if it's a season finale, if you're battling for a championship, you don't want to have those limitations late in a race as well.
And we've also found out an even bigger day for Nick DeGroot. Not only does he pick up the win here tonight, but he had no incident points here this evening and was the highest finisher, and therefore he is going to pick up the $100 bonus this evening as well. So a lot of good things for Nick DeGroot here today, as well as mentioned, even though this is a special event, certainly looking like he could carry this momentum into Wednesday night at Chicagoland, the next race for the Dark Horse Racing Series. And obviously, we talked to him last season when he came up third place in the standings, and he said, I kind of feel like there were some races we could have done a little bit better on. Well, he's got the momentum on his side. I think we got to definitely keep an eye on him when we get to Chicagoland in a couple days' time.
Absolutely. Even though this is a non-points paying race, a special event will still boost morale and boost the momentum going in. And Chicagoland, while it is a much shorter racetrack, it's still an oval. So you have a oval win here today. 2 days time, you'll be at another oval, 1.5 mile oval this time, but still having some oval knowledge and being able to take a similar package to Chicagoland. I think they'll run with a bit higher downforce at that racetrack, but still basically a flat out racetrack, given the banking is enough in order to do that with. But this has been fun, and with the $100 bonus, the group can also get an apple pie along with his Happy Meal. So the perks of winning races, such as this.
There you go. Well, no doubt about it. Definitely a fun special event, an exciting race overall, and a whale of a finish here. 3 wide to the start finish line. Nick DeGroot just barely edging out Charles Teed to win the Drinan Garage Doors 500 at Indianapolis. What a great race here today at the Brickyard. Matt, Anthony, appreciate you joining me in the booth.
Oh, it's so much fun. I love Indy cars, and if I really wanted to be able to do these on Wednesdays, but schedules do not allow that. But it was nice to get in and do a bit of it here today on a Monday.
Just filled in for Scott. Unfortunately, he is still asleep.
Well, hopefully he will wake up before Wednesday, as he and I will be in the booth for you guys on Wednesday night to bring you Chicagoland here in the Dark Horse Racing Series, continuing on the schedule for the 4th season. But until then, for Matthew Rodriguez, Anthony McCurry, I'm Seth Cole. Enjoy the rest of your Monday as you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.